All right, the clock tells me it's 1 o'clock. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it. Welcome to AV for Our Common Humanity. My name is Adam Nettesheim, and I've got over 16 years in the AV industry, ranging from directing live television to doing freelance 3D animation. I've volunteered doing AV work in faith-based communities, and I've worked in the private and public sector. For my day job, I currently hold the post of multimedia specialist for the town of Erie, and that's a local municipality here in Colorado. I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here as a writer and just kind of somebody in the industry who has some things to share. The topic of this session, as I've said, is called AV for Our Common Humanity. And if you attended my session last year, AV for the Common Good, you heard me present an idealistic view of our industry and heard me offer genuine appreciation to all of you for your participation in an industry that, in my view and my experience, played a much needed positive role during the pandemic. I wasn't here to sell anything. I'm not here to sell anything this year. I was just presenting a love letter to our industry and an appeal to our better angels as we seek to utilize AV as a force for good in the world. And I still believe all that is true. But though this session is not a reversal of that position, it is a higher level, kind of more sober view at the challenges that we face in our industry and how those challenges affect everyone else across this world that we share. And it's more of a session that's focused on the whys of our AV use and practice and purchasing, so that then you can go onto the AV floor and find solutions that work for the needs that you have in the service of our common humanity. So yeah, we have ethical duties as practitioners of AV, and in a larger sense, humans wield this awesome, seemingly endless, expanding power of modern technology. And this session is more based on principles that I think might be useful as we go forward, more than specific practical prescriptives, because technology changes so rapidly. If you look at this chart, the curve of our tech has drastically curved upward, and this has produced some remarkable things. And we are here in an industry that utilizes these technological marvels in our vocations. Has our collective ethical consciousness risen with it? I would argue it has, but has it matched the rate of growth? And will it continue to match the rate of seemingly endless growth so that each new challenge is met by anticipated, well thought out, and ethical response to its creation and implementation? Most of us were not necessarily aware, that between the last AVXpo and this one, AI would rise from something kind of in the background to something very much in the forefront of our minds. Best practices are scrambling to catch up, entire industries are shifting, and questions are being asked about which job sectors are relevant anymore. When a prompt on a computer can aggregate data across the span of human knowledge and have it be assembled by algorithms on demand, I'll admit, as a writer and an artist, someone who aspires to future publication, I'm concerned that the publishing industry is going to be flooded by books written by ChatGPT and illustrated with AI. And then at the end, publishers won't care because it's cheaper, and many readers won't care because it just won't matter. There have always been changes in industries that have turned things on their heads, like horses and buggies, which lost out to automobiles. But in general, humans have still been a part of the process on every level. But life is a bit more complicated right now. This is no longer the time of our old friend Clippy from Windows 98. Clippy, moderately helpful, a little annoying, but really generally pretty benign. We didn't have to worry about the ethics of Clippy. And if Clippy got too annoying, you could always hide it. AI, however, regardless of what you think about it, seems anything but benign and seems harder to hide from. Some see AI as a more subserviently benevolent force, just like our buddy Clippy, a good-natured servant that helps us accomplish our human mission and correct our spelling errors. More towards the middle, some see AI technology as HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, a force that, though very helpful and necessary for operations as it might be, might possibly also get a glitch in its programming and turn on us. And then we have to escape through a brightly colored wormhole or something, and then we all turn into floating glowing space babies. I didn't fully get what was going on there. On the far end of concern for AI, there seems to be concern that we've plugged ourselves willingly or unwillingly into the matrix, and we become bodies stuck in tubes of goop, and that we're plugged forcefully in the grip of a mechanized overlord that directs our every move with algorithms, ads, and memes, to the point that we have no agency and no free thought, no informed electorate, and ultimately no autonomy outside that which is allowed by our technological overlords, eventually trapped and awaiting our messianic savior, Keanu Reeves, to come set us free. Wherever you land on the spectrum of concern, I don't think there are many that see AI as an insignificant force on the current fabric of existence. Progress is going to happen, technology is going to move forward, and I know we can't run everything off Windows 98 forever. I'm suggesting, though, that there's a lot of room between Clippy and the Matrix, and we do well to explore that. Failing to do so is going to lead to some deep problems. We've seen some of these problems emerge already, attacking the very notion of truth itself, misuse of AI and other sources of misinformation across the technological spectrum. We've seen how seeing is no longer believing. In many ways, we can no longer trust our own eyes when we scroll our screens. Consequences of this can be as inconvenient as Tom Hanks having to post on his social media accounts that no, that was not him selling dental insurance in a commercial that used AI to generate his likeness. From things like that to tragic events that cost lives because of lies that were proliferated across our social media or generated with AI. The entertainment industry is in upheaval over this summer through the Writers Guild that seems to have come to terms, but the Actors Guild is still very much protesting, and they're protesting, among other things, the threat certain types of technology seem to pose to their livelihoods and legacies as artists. You've also probably seen the little inventory checking robots at grocery stores, or stores with little to no staff to speak of, and even driverless automated tractors that invite us to question how technology is replacing workers across the economic spectrum and where those workers can seek livelihood next. These are questions worth asking. But lest you think I'm advocating for AI and technology's complete removal, I work in this technologically driven industry, and I got here using AI through Google Maps. It did a very good job navigating me here. There are background processes that have made all of our utilization of our tech and craft easier by technology continuing to advance, and process improvements continue to give us the capacities to be better and more effective and more creative in our work. Similar to the chart about technology, you see similar charts with similar arcs in terms of life expectancy and GDP and percentages of people living in a democracy. Humans are miraculous and humans are fallible. Even our best of intentions can prove faulty, but our best intentions are far better driven, but our best intentions are a far better driver for our advancement than our baser, selfish, malicious impulses. So what will become of AI? What will become of humanity in the near future? Or as President Johnson said in 1967 when he signed the Public Broadcasting Act, what hath man wrought, and how will man use his miracles? We get to choose, and we get to try. Honestly, I'm not here to talk to you about AI exclusively and with any authority. If that's what you're looking for, I see on the schedule there's a session tomorrow covering the benefits and burdens of it, and it may be worth your time. In fact, problematic AI, as far as I see it, is only the inevitable conclusion of where we can go when we refuse to be mindful with our technology creation and implementation. Generative AI could be where we could go with that mindfulness in positive ways. It's possible that it's also possible that as AI grows, being fed by human content, it may begin to eat its own tail when it starts consuming AI-generated content, and it may fall to nothing. But whatever takes its place may have even more difficult challenges for us to face. So today I'm here to broadly invite thoughtfulness, mindfulness, intentionality, and caution as we move forward into this technological frontier. And I'm here to plead that in the rush to progress, we not leave our common humanity behind. And I'm here to remind us that technology is our servant, It's an incredible tool. However, if we let it control our lives, we become its servants, and technology makes a very poor, if not malicious, master. I get that this topic is a little weird for an AV industry trade show, and I'm in no way discouraging you from going out that door onto the show floor and seeing all the cool new tech and finding solutions for the challenges your companies are facing. I'm advocating for whys. Why do we do these things, and what problems are we trying to solve, and what benefits our common humanity? Again, when you go out onto that floor, get you some swag. We could all use more pens and stress balls, right? Especially if we're a little stressed about the future of AI. Tech can be extremely helpful when we choose and implement it well, but we've also got to be willing to evaluate the consequences of our advancement and be honest about what isn't helpful, or what more likely is something that we had good intentions about, but maybe that had unintended consequences. If we're seeing that some of our work has contributed to some problematic things, what can we do about it? Does it matter if we don't do anything? I'd like to deviate a little bit from what I'm talking about right now to recount the plot of the 1957 movie, The Bridge on the River Kwai. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alerts ahead. I recommend it, but you've had 60 plus years to watch it, so I feel like you've sufficiently had the opportunity to do so by now. It's a powerful movie, and I'm going to skip over its 161 minutes of runtime, leaving so much out. But if you'll indulge me briefly, here's a quick version of that story. The film takes place during World War II in a POW camp run by the Japanese. Colonel Nicholson is brought in leading his troops in typical military precision even though they're prisoners. The camp's commandant informs the British prisoners that they will be working during their time in that camp, and their work is to build a railway bridge over the River Kwai. The colonel, as the film goes on, sees this as an opportunity to keep his men's bodies and minds fit, rather than deteriorate from inactivity and lack of agency. They build the bridge throughout the film and ultimately create a mighty fine bridge, a bridge that the colonel and his men are very proud of indeed. It has served the purpose the colonel hoped it would in keeping his men engaged and alive, and he now sees it as a monument to their work. But in the outside world, the Allies see it as something that's a strategic advantage for the enemy's efforts in the area, and they send a team to destroy it. Colonel Nicholson, the good, principled, dedicated soldier and leader of his British troops, has now become so enamored with the bridge that he and his men built that when he sees the Allies attempting to blow up the bridge, he alerts the prison camp commandant to it. He attempts to stop the blowing up of his bridge by his allies, forgetting that it served his intended purpose for it, and now only serves the purposes of his enemies that are imprisoning his men, and now the bridge is only emboldening his enemies' efforts to capture more prisoners, gain more ground, and possibly win the war he was fighting against them in. But in the conflict that ensues, Colonel Nicholson sees an ally that he knows be shot. He looks around at the bodies and he hears the approaching enemy train set to go across the bridge he built towards who knows what terrible end. And he is broken out of his obsessiveness and stands there hat in hand and wide-eyed exclaiming, "What have I done?" I'll leave it to you to finish the film to find out how it ends. I'll also leave it to you to see if there's any direct applicability to our current challenges. Some former employees and innovators from Silicon Valley are coming forward saying that what their efforts have worked towards have had, in many ways, unintended and substantive societal consequences. This "what have we done" remorse from social media engineers is particularly sobering, and it's highlighted in the thoughtful documentary The Social Dilemma. Some have even now dedicated their lives to implementing more ethical guidelines for tech innovation and innovation of a more humane approach to its creation. I get that every industry, the market is often held by who gets there first, and then who holds that ground best. But there may come a time where we must be willing to serve humanity first by being last in the race to our own destruction. We may need to find economically viable ways to push reverse on a runaway train, or at least switch tracks towards a more generative direction, to find the balance between our innovation and our common humanity. I share the story on the bridge of the River Kwai to suggest that we cannot become so enamored with our progress, with our technological miracles, that we are blind to their misuse or their deviations from our intentions. We cannot become so focused on advancement that we do not see who is being left behind. We cannot be so in love with the work of our hands that we refuse to see who is being harmed in the process. I'm hoping that our collective consciousness might activate well before the brink of the moment Colonel Nicholson experienced, and I'm hoping that with conscientious efforts on our part, we can curve any trains of damage away from humanity if we all apply some principles to our tech innovation and implementation going forward, safeguarding our good intentions and reducing the opportunities for harm caused by thoughtlessness or malicious use. If you'll remember the great philosopher William Joel, as he used this film as an example thusly: Little Rock, Pasternak, Mickey Mantle, Kerouac, Sputnik, Cho and Lai, Bridge on the River Kwai. We didn't start the fire, it was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire, no we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Yes, we didn't originate these issues. They come from the very beginning of humanity. And yes, our best of intentions can also cause their very own unintended consequences, but we cannot succumb to despair. Though we didn't light it, we must indeed, as was said, try to fight that fire. In an effort to do so, I'm offering some principles that may assist us going forward. Again, these are broad, high-level principles, not specific prescriptions. Technology is changing so much that these are hard things. Technology is changing at such a rapid pace that anything I give today might be outdated tomorrow, much like, to my regret, Windows 98 and Clippy. But principles, good principles, are likely going to transcend the times and specifics that they were originated in. I'll give you an example, and if we could get this one right, we wouldn't need any other principles. The first principle, and really the only one we would need if we got it right, is the prime principle: love your neighbor. That's it. If we could do this perfectly, we wouldn't need any of the other rules. If I love another person, I'm much less likely to steal their intellectual property, right? I'm much less likely to make their position irrelevant, or at least I'm going to put as much effort and thought into finding ways to ensure that they have a safe, generative place to move to. If I love my neighbor, I'm not going to diminish their humanity in the name of my progress. This 2,000-year-old principle has withstood the test of time and beckons all of us to live lives of common decency that care for one another, and that includes our technology. Now, since we're not perfect at loving our neighbor yet, even though we've had 2,000 years to practice, here are some other guardrails that might help us get there. So, sub-principle 1, we seek creativity, not theft. How is this going to play out with all the writers suing OpenAI for their use of its use of their intellectual property to train its bot? What is the end going to be of image generation that uses other people's images without their permission as the basis for art created by ones and zeros? Now, can art be made using a computer, using algorithms? I think there's ways that it can. I'm a digital artist as well. And in fact, I'm connected with someone from my college days who has fed his art into his own AI art generator and has been developing some really interesting stuff. We can argue about the merits of that art, but that, whatever else it might be, is not theft. It's him putting his own creativity into his own generator. And in our work, I just want to advocate, in our work, a worthy principle is to seek creativity, not theft. Sub-principle 2, we seek human collaboration, not isolation. We are in a work that is inherently relational. We are in a relationship and in a position of responsibility to an audience, sure. But also there's the collaborative element in media's creation as well. When we isolate too far down, finding ways to trim others out of our process, we just might be losing one of the things that make our work worth doing. A field producer of news stories can get a tripod set up or get a motion-activated movement tracking camera to do the job of a cameraman. But I saw a story on social media that I loved. It was a younger journalist and a retiring cameraman who had been her mentor and who had helped her in her growing stages of becoming a journalist. And she was so broken that he was retiring. She was so sad. And she was so grateful for all the things that his mentorship had given her. She would not be crying the same way. She would not be as grateful. She would not have grown as much if her tripod broke. She would never have learned so much about the industry and about her own humanity from a motion tracking camera. Yes, tech changes and it moves forward, but in the ways that we can, let's remember people are valuable and can make us better too. And if we have to change something that removes someone from the process, can we find a way to add someone to the process? Sub-principle 3, technology is our tool, not our master. Y'all remember the movie WALL-E? The human lives on that ship? There's actually a WALL-E replica out there in the audience, or out there in the show floor. I saw it walking in. The human lives on that ship that was floating around became so dependent on the technology around them and that it catered to their every whim that they lost the capacity to stand on their own 2 feet. They went from flesh and blood humans to infantilized cartoon characters. It was a sugar and pixel-filled prison, though they thought they were the ones being served. If every time my notifications go off, I get sweats until I check my phone, if I'm scrolling in bed and in the morning, if I don't feel right, if my phone is not in my pocket, if I'm constantly being nudged toward purchases by my device, I may feel like it's serving me, but it's worth asking, am I really serving it? And in a larger human sense, we cannot love the pixels or the electrons more than we love that which they are meant to make the lives of better, our fellow humans. Technology is our tool, not our master. Sub-principle 4, we seek to always keep trust. This one is especially important for me in my day job working for the town of Erie. There's been a dramatic decrease in the public's trust for their government nationwide and possibly worldwide. There is an erosion of trust in our institutions beyond that, news media, religious communities, education, etc. And we can all probably think of different ways that we might agree that this mistrust is in some places and examples not completely unearned. In our discussions of what technology implementation both serves the public needs but also honors the public trust, we attempt to remember that we are public servants in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Any technological implementation must be in that service and must serve the public trust. The way forward for that is not always clear, but letting our guiding star be keeping the public trust is helpful in finding our way. And part of keeping public trust is being honest about when we've made mistakes. Doesn't it feel good when adults take responsibility for their actions? Don't we feel like something is right with the world when we hear a genuine apology and we see the change in action to back it up? Don't we wish we saw that more? The only way we're going to see the benefits of any of these principles in the world around us and in our industry is if we choose to make them a part of our lives first. I hope those 4 principles about how we implement our tech in search for solutions is helpful. But now to wrap things up, if you'll indulge me real quick, and again, I'm just talking myself here. I'm not talking for anybody else, for the Expo, for my day job. I'd like to take a moment to personally share my heart with yours. Technology is a wonderful thing, but it is not a replacement for the 3 things that I believe are very important for our common humanity. And hopefully some awareness of these 3 things that I believe technology can never replace will help guide us going forward. Technology can be a tool and a helpful servant in the quest of these things, but it can never replace the things themselves. The first one is what philosophers and religious people and mystics and wide-eyed wanderers have been rolling over since man first walked on the face of the earth. The relationship we have with something greater than ourselves, what many of us would call the divine. This is beyond the reach of technology to replace. Technology can aid us in this quest with resources and collective collaborative understandings across time and space through the writings of ancient and modern seekers. It can help us understand the universe and our existence more through scientific progress, but it cannot replace the subject of this wonder. I firmly believe earnest seeking is rewarded and that seeking can be aided by technology. But whatever direction your search may lead you, I believe technology cannot replace or fulfill the heart's longing to touch the face of something greater than ourselves. The second one is technology cannot replace our relationship with each other. We're not made to be alone. I know the hurts I've experienced in connection with others, and that causes me to withdraw and remain apart from anyone who could ever hurt me the same way again. And yet the ache is great because the need is great. We need each other. Being human is hard sometimes, real hard. And technology can connect us to people across the world. Technology can help us understand each other better. Technology can aid in community building and communication. Technology can serve our collective communal common good, but it can't replace it. At some point, you've got to know and be known, to give and to receive our humanity to each other, to love our neighbor as ourselves. And the third one, technology cannot replace our relationship with ourselves. Listen, we've all got stuff to work on, and we've sometimes needs help with that. And I'm not here to prescribe specific lines for you in your journey, only to say you've got to walk this life with yourself. And my belief is that underneath all the things we put on ourselves out of fear and selfishness and guardedness and attempts to be somebody or control everything, at the core of that, underneath all that, each of us was given a uniqueness, a beauty, and a spark of the divine. I think each of us at our core is worth knowing. Technology can help us learn and grow into more ourselves who we're meant to be, but it can never replace us to ourselves. And any attempt to do so is not human and not really possible. Technology is a gift. Technology is, as far as we know, here to stay. And technology can absolutely serve the common good to the extent that we choose to be mindful with its creation and implementation. If we lead with our common humanity, if we implement mindful principles, and if we lead with loving our neighbor, we stand a much better chance of having our relationship with tech be more like a really helpful Clippy than the Matrix. Technology cannot create virtue, but in our creation and use of it, it can begin to reflect ours. If we want useful, beautiful, generative tech, we must be so as people, but the choice is ours. We get to choose how technology can serve and enhance our common humanity, not detract from it or destroy it. And the two need not cancel each other out. They can embolden each other, our humanity and our technology, but only when technology is in service of the common humanity and not the other way around. We can choose this path forward if we lead with love for one another, and since we're not going to do that perfectly right away, placing some helpful guardrail principles to guide our path forward. We as participants in this remarkable industry of AV can be a force for good in this world to the extent that we continually make the choice to do so. Thank you all for the gift of your time. I really appreciate you sitting through this weird session for an AV trade show, but I'm really grateful you were here. If you've enjoyed this, you can follow some of my writing at my website or on the socials, but really I just want to say thank you for the gift of your time and thank you for the work that you do in this remarkable industry. May we all serve the common humanity in our work. Thank you very much.